Previously on our story, Chitty's mother sends him to Mama Hindeola for help after a mysterious curse threatens his family. To save his mother and sister, Chitty must disguise himself as a girl and comb Hinda's hair 5 times without her knowing. But as he ventures into a mystical realm, he uncovers dark family secrets and the truth behind the curse. Will Chitty succeed in breaking it? Watch to find out. For more thrilling stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. Help me! Chitty cried, but Chitty was pulled farther away, upward, until he vanished from sight. He found himself thrown back into his body in Madam Hindeola's shop. The mannequins were still singing. Chitty turned to see Madam Hindeola, her back facing him, clearly trying to avoid the piercing gaze of the mannequins, perhaps so she won't get hypnotized. This was his chance. He immediately got up and took out the comb from his pocket. It glowed brightly, just like Chitty had. He rushed to the hair of the mannequin, remembering how his mother would comb Chitty's hair. He placed his hand on the mannequin's forehead and ran the comb through the wig that Madam Hindeola had placed on it. 1, Chitty cried, combing through the hair. 2, he shouted as he combed again. 3, he said. 4, and as he combed the 4th time, the singing died down. Then, Madam Hindeola began to laugh, a laugh that faltered as she turned to see what Chitty was doing. No, she screamed. Don't. She lunged at Chitty, but he quickly combed the hair for the last time, causing the wig to burst into flames. She fell to the ground, her hands on her head, screaming. Ah! It burns and itches, she screeched. What have you done to me, you devil? How could you? Who told you? I am your nephew, Chitty replied hurriedly, and without warning, he recounted everything Mama Hindeola had told him, leaving no detail behind. That old hag! Madam Hindeola cried, scratching her head once more in distress. You must confess and feel remorse for it all to go away, Chitty urged, puzzled as to why nothing was happening. He had no clear expectation, but apart from the burning sensation, he thought something dramatic would unfold. Perhaps his sister and mother were doing all right now. After I returned, the old hag rejected me. I went to her and confessed everything I had done, Madam Hindeola admitted. What exactly did you do? Chitty asked, curiously. Your mother knew, Madam Hindeola wailed, slapping her forehead. She knew and yet chose him. He approached her, Chitty interjected. It doesn't matter, she shot back. Men are foolish. I expected your mother, my sister, to know better. I always knew when he sought her out. We could never hide anything from each other. She confided in me. Chitty's eyes widened. Yes, despite our perceived rivalry, we shared everything. She continued scratching her head as the itching persisted. I told her if she didn't want him, I did. But since he didn't meet me, that was fine. I wouldn't pursue him. But shortly after, he sought me out and professed his desire. He even told me he had approached my sister, and she turned him down. Chitty was at a loss for words, and we became involved. I told him not to reveal our relationship to my sister. I wanted to tell her myself, but I couldn't shake the feeling she was unhappy with me. Her attitude changed towards me, but I didn't mind. I was happy. Chitty shook his head in disbelief. I knew when my sister started wanting him. She went to him, and he came to me for advice, Madam Hindeola said, her irritation evident. That useless pig. The moment he sought my counsel, I sensed trouble brewing. A man makes his decision without needing guidance from a woman. If he asks, it's usually because he's afraid of hurting her. He isn't seeking for advice. He's just trying to know how the choice he has already made would affect you. Chitty shook his head again. Yes. I told him to be with her if he wished. After all, we weren't married. I was biding my time. I knew once he and I made it official, my sister would have to back off. I would never deny her the fleeting happiness. Yes, I loved her that much. This can't be true, Chitty murmured, still in disbelief. You don't have to believe me, Madam Hindeola retorted, slapping her head and whimpering. But it is the truth. The day I proposed marriage to him, he declined, saying his parents would never approve of a Yoruba woman. I was fine with it. I already knew I was with children. That was the best outcome I could hope for. I wouldn't beg a man who didn't want me to love me. But then, Chukwemeka had the audacity to take my sister, still a Yoruba woman, as his wife. I loved my sister and wanted her happiness, but my hatred for him ran deeper, and he had to pay. I murdered him on their wedding night, and I took his blood because killing him alone wasn't enough. Now Chitty's curiosity was fully engaged. He awaited her explanation. I went to Mama Hindeola and told her everything, but she clearly favored my sister. The only useful advice she gave was to channel my pain and create something great from it. She looked around her shop with admiration. Well, I did just that, and when I returned, did she accept me? Madam Hindeola shook her head. I was left alone, no sister, no elder, nothing. But I didn't care. I owned the most popular, most successful salon, and I became known in all the towns and villages. How did you channel your pain? Chitty pressed impatiently. What did you do to my cousins? Madam Hindeola glanced at him and slapped her head once more. The instructions were simple. The blood of the offender taken forcefully, the blood of the offended given willingly, and the blood of the innocent offered unknowingly. A silent mark of pain that remains unforgiven. No, Chitty cried, horrified. Yes, Madam Hindeola confirmed. I performed the ritual, and the spirits granted me my wish for success in anything I chose to pursue. I was already skilled in hair braiding, so I requested their blessing on my hands. They agreed, but in exchange, they would take half the souls of my customers to beautify them in the spirit realm. And what happened to the customers? Chitty inquired. How have you escaped detection? Because the beauty of the hairstyles is mesmerizing to anyone who sees them. People are too lazy to connect the dots. If they did, they would question why Raelia, once a brilliant student, became as dull as a sack of rocks and violent, or why Mama Fajiro, the once popular owner of the biggest restaurant, suddenly lost all her customers, or why Temedeo, the formerly pure daughter of Mr. Temedeo, began sleeping around and robbing men after visiting my salon, even beating up the men afterward. She laughed proudly. The list is endless. Can you not see how men are now afraid of the women of this village? Amazing, isn't it? Let them know how it feels. Now that Chitty thought about it, nothing was thriving in the village. Only a few shops remained functional, and only a handful of women had any meaningful work. The men were the most industrious and productive members of the community, while the women seemed content to drink, smoke, or chase after men and beat them up where necessary. It all made sense now. Madam Hindeola was the most successful woman in the village. The other women were just as beautiful as goddesses, but that was it. The game is up. It's all over. You need to give it up. Please release these souls. My sister is among them, and I need you to undo everything you've done. My mother, your sister, is dying. How is that my fault? Madam Hindeola asked. She's never come here to do her hair. If she had, I would have known. As for your sister, it is the same fate. She just has half her soul taken from her. I can't do anything about it. Her condition is different from the other girls, Chitty insisted. I can't explain why. Even in the spirit world, she's different. She roams free, pale, and can only be seen when I'm close to her. Panic flickered across Madam Hindeola's face at Chitty's words. What's wrong? Chitty asked, fearing the worst. Madam Hindeola shook her head. I'm not releasing anything. I'm feeding on my pain. Besides, my sister knows I've been here. She never came to apologize. I bet she's forgotten I even exist. I owe no one anything. Once you leave here, I'll consult the spirits to heal me, and everything will revert to normal. No one will believe you. I will just make their hairs prettier. The gloves slipped off her hands, revealing the growing pustules. She sighed in pain. Why do you think you're suffering? Chitty asked. And why do you think your sister is dying? I don't care, Madam Hindeola retorted. But you do care, Chitty pressed. Do you want to know why those boils have appeared on your hands? Madam Hindeola glanced at the boils and then at Chitty. Yes, you got them after braiding my sister's hair. My mother has been remorseful ever since, Chitty stated. She's so regretful that she refuses to braid anyone's hair in the village. She only refers them to you. You know she is the only one who can braid as well as you. Madam Hindeola scoffed. It's true, Mama Hindeola said so. I could never understand why she wouldn't braid anyone's hair while we were all struggling. That was her punishment, her way of saying sorry. It took a toll on the family. We could barely eat. My sister and I convinced our mother to take a customer. But that customer had just come from your salon. Chitty shook his head. Perhaps there was a dormant curse you didn't know about. It triggered and activated the curse, leading to my mother having so many boils on her hands, just like yours. I braided her daughter's hair, and she did my customer's hair, Madam Hindeola said, looking down at her hands as realization dawned on her. So she's been suffering all this while? I thought she didn't care. I thought she hated me when I should have been the one filled with hate. She betrayed me. She whimpered in pain as one of the boils burst, releasing a green fluid from her hands. The stench began to fill the room. Madam Hindeola whimpered but said nothing. Chitty decided to change his approach. So you'll let a useless man come between you and your sister, he shouted. Not just any sister, your twin sister. I know you hate him for what he did, but I'm sure you love your sister more. Please forgive her. It's the only way. I'm begging you. Madam Hindeola's gaze hardened further, and Chitty knelt before her. Please forgive her, please, he pleaded. Save her and save my sister. Release the souls of all the girls. He pointed to the aloe vera plant growing by the wall. My mother kept these too. She said they were for healing. She never explained whose pain they were meant to ease, but now I understand. She wanted to heal her heart, to forgive herself for hurting you. All this time, she's been waiting for your forgiveness. It's not too late to forgive her. You can still save her, my sister, and yourself. For the first time, Madam Hindeola's hardened gaze softened. She gently touched the aloe vera plant, a tear slipping down her cheek. I wanted to hate her, but I couldn't not really. It was always Chukwemeka I hated and wanted to suffer. It was never her. She closed her eyes and placed her hands on the ground, the green fluid from her fingers staining the earth. In a soft, broken voice she whispered, Terrie, my sister, I forgive you. At that moment, the room seemed to exhale, as if a heavy weight had lifted from the air. Chitty felt a strange warmth wash over him. Looking around, he suddenly sensed his sister's presence, a soft glow illuminating her figure. She did not appear happy, and before Chitty could reach out to her, the two mannequins burst into pieces. From the fragments, tiny balls of light, the souls of the lost girls, zoomed out, likely returning to their rightful owners. Screams erupted everywhere. Girls shouted and motorbike taxis crashed. Chaos filled every part of the village where girls or women who had visited Madam Hindeola's shop to have their hair done were. The girls received their souls one after the other and screamed loudly. Mama Angiola, who was with Chitera and her mother, sighed to herself. It is done. Madam Hindeola's hands began to heal. Chitty approached Chitera's glowing figure, who still wore a sorrowful expression. Chitty's heart raced as he watched Chitera standing before him, glowing like a ghost. Her figure shimmered, almost translucent, as though she might vanish at any moment. Kneeling beside his fading sister, he whispered, Chitera? Why aren't you in your body? Chitera's sad smile flickered. Only half souls leave the spirit realm. But twins were only whole together. When separated, we are half a soul. Half a soul separated is a quarter of a soul. I don't have enough energy to go back into my body. I appeared here because of the rush of souls, just to say goodbye. No. Chitty reached for her, but her image wavered like smoke. You can't leave me. I'll find a way. I'll take your place. Madam Hindeola stepped forward, her expression softening. Chitty, there is a way, she said quietly, reaching for her knife. This curse was born from my hate. It must end with me. Taking a steady breath, she met Chitty's shocked gaze. Tell Terrie I'm sorry. The shop, it's hers now. I know she will do a good job of running it. Chitera's face paled as she shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. No, please don't. But Madam Hindeola only smiled softly. Clutching the knife, she began to chant, Life of the offender, forcefully taken, life of the innocent, unknowingly given, and now, life of the offended, willingly given. She plunged the knife into her stomach, her body shimmering as it dissolved into dust. Chitty blinked through his tears as Chittera, now a radiant ball of light, rose into the air and shot like a star toward the sky. Gradually, the atmosphere felt lighter, and Chitty sprinted home, bursting through the door just as his mother's eyes fluttered open, relief flooding her face. "Chitty," she whispered, reaching for him. And then, as if a miracle had unfolded, Chittera's eyes opened too. Chitty embraced them, and their family was whole once more. Madam Hindeola's death was blamed on the recent increase in crimes in the village. No one found anything suspicious about her death. In the wake of Madam Hindeola's sacrifice, the village of Ararewemi began to heal. Terrier took over the salon, renaming it Madam Hindeola's Salon in honor of her sister. She welcomed young women from the village, teaching them the cherished art of hair braiding. The salon thrived, drawing customers from surrounding communities eager for Terrier's skilled hands. As the women regained their confidence, they started their own businesses, and love blossomed into marriages, breathing new life into the village. The days of strife faded away, and the people united in harmony, reclaiming their vibrant culture and honoring the sisters' legacy. With pride, Terrier looked around her bustling salon, feeling deep gratitude. She had not only restored her family, but reignited hope in the hearts of her people. The beauty of their hairstyles became a symbol of strength and unity, transforming lives and weaving the community together once more. What was the best part of this story, and what did you learn from it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, share with your friends, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an exciting story.